Hello everybody and welcome back to our channel. Today we'll be reviewing Aker. It's a feathers design sofa. It's compact yet very comfortable because of its feathers cushions both for the seats and the backrests. Let's dive in. As to its design, Aker is composed with this thin structure that goes below the seats and does create the armrest and the backrest, and this structure does contain all the cushions that are simply lying onto the structure. You can see that the structure is rather squared, while you don't have perfectly square edges, so it's slightly rounded, but still you can perceive the 90 degrees, while it does show these soap-shaped cushions, which are slightly rounded with pointed edges here and here, and it creates a nice contrast between 90 degrees angle and these rounded cushions. We will talk about materials at the end of the video, but in general you can start by seeing that we have created this sofa with two materials and two colors, and of course it's beautiful in one single material, but well, it's an effective model to be designed with two materials and two contrasting color, as you see here. Let's talk about measures. Well, first of all, the standard measures, it's only 93 centimeters deep. This is why I started the video by saying that it's quite compact. Then we have a seat height of 42 centimeters, pretty standard for comfortable sofa. The armrest here is 70 centimeters, 83, and the feet are 18 centimeters high. So what I'd like to point out that is compact in terms of footprint, only 93 centimeters deep, but also compact in terms of look, because it's rather an aerial sofa, 18 centimeters of the ground, and also its profile, it's quite low. So if I imagine it not in front of a wall, but in the middle of a room, let's assume that I'm standing behind the sofa, maybe I have a dining table here and the wall system and the television in front, well, my sight is able to move around in the room because I don't have a bulky volume from the sofa. Let's talk about the widths available. So we have linear elements. We start from the armchair, the 80 centimeters armchair and the 110. The 80 centimeters armchair is very interesting because it's very compact and comfortable. Then we have the linear sofas. They start from 180 centimeters, and then by 20 centimeters each step you have the 2 meters, 220, 240 and 260 as a single piece. I'd like to point out that the smallest dimension available, widths available for the linear sofa is 180, because you can perceive how the armrest is rather bulky, because it's comprised of two parts, the structural element and the cushion itself. I'll show you how comfortable it becomes in a minute. Then we have the terminal elements, and actually this composition is comprised of 3 terminal elements, because this is an element from here to the armrest, and we have 3 dimensions available, which are 155, 175 and 195. So the point is this: I can create a wider linear composition with 2 terminal elements. For example, this is 330 because it's 175 plus 175. Or I can combine terminal elements together, or terminal element plus a linear, in order to create a corner composition, like in this situation. So here I have a depth of 93 centimeters, and then we have added the 155 terminal element. So we have 248 total, because I have 93 plus 155. So we don't have chaise longue elements. This is a peculiar aspect of the Aker sofa. Most of the models have chaise longue elements, not on this model. We don't have a specific corner element. We do create corner composition, sectional composition, by adding a terminal, either left or right terminal, and attach it to another terminal or to a linear. Let's test its comfort. Well, we said it's a feathers design sofa, and it's very comfortable, even though it's compact in depth especially. Well, often when I describe certain sofas, I say, oh, you don't sink in, it's rather bouncy. This is not bouncy, and you do sink in a good way, because even though it's just 93 centimeters deep, the fact that the counterback is rather shallow, gives you the possibility of having a normal depth for the seat, and together with the feathers, it's very welcoming. And you don't sink in because, well, I start with technical details. For example, inside the seat you have natural feathers, but you also have a layer of density 40 foam, so a rather dense foam, and so which you don't have on the back. So on the seat you perceive the comfort of the feathers, but you don't fully sink in. While as to the back, you do sink in a pleasant way. I'd like to point out that you see this very high armrest. Well, of course, it's very comfortable when you sit like this. You know, Chesterfield sofa are not comfortable at all, but the good aspect of Chesterfield sofa is that the armrest is as high as the backrest, and so this sort of attitude and position is comfortable. Here, this armrest allows you, which is also very comfortable because it's all feathers, allows you to sit like this. Well, now I'm wearing shoes, but let's imagine that I'm sitting like this, I'm reading a book, or I might have the television in another direction rather than the front of the sofa. And, well, I very much like it. Bear in mind that the fact that you have all feathers, even though with the density 40 layer in the seat, gives you the situation where after a night watching a DVD, well, no, DVDs are something from the old ages. Watching a fiction on a streaming platform. Well, after a full night on the sofa, well, your sofa will kind of have a shabby look. Not shabby in a negative way, but of course the corners, you will have certain creases and folds on the fabric, on the cover. And the amount of these folds and the need of actually taking care of your sofa after using it, well, it depends on the cover that you choose. You might perceive it more on thinner fabrics, or softer fabrics. You might perceive it less, for example, on leather. And so the aspect of the surface of the sofa does change depending on the material that you choose. More technical aspects. We have a wooden structure, and on the wooden structure you have elastic bands. These elastic bands are meant to support the seat cushion. I will take away the seat cushion, okay, so you can see how it is managed. You can see how the fabric, the noble part of the fabric, does cover most of the lower surface. Here you see sometimes on cheaper collections you tend to use the technical gray fabric, polyester fabric, instead of the noble fabric in order to save costs, manufacturing costs. In this case, it was meant for a different purpose, because you see, this specific fabric does create a grip between this surface and the lower surface, and so you just need a tiny strip of Velcro so that the cushion is stable, okay? And you see how leather here is managed, okay? It does cover most. You have these bands that go towards the back. I'll move this cushion also, okay? And I'd like to point out how also the leather cover is removable. This is an exceptional feature because most of time all leather covers are all stitched and you cannot remove it. And you know, I'm a leather lover. Even good quality leather, maybe after 15, 20, 25 years, it can age. And by having a removable leather, well, you can imagine redoing your sofa after many years, or you can imagine that in case of damage, there's a way to intervene and fix the damage. This is very important. Another technical detail about the cushion, the back cushions, okay. Here you see that, well, the feathers are, first of all, as I explained in other videos, are all in separate chambers. And so even if you compress the cushion, more or less it goes back to its original shape. But what is most important is that this inside cover is 100% cotton. This is important. You know, you could have a polyester fabric inside. This is 100% cotton, but it's a special cotton with a so-called anti-feathers cloth. And well, you say, okay, Andrea, you're talking about, you're describing a feathers design sofa. Feathers are its main characteristic, except for its design. And then you talk about anti-feathers. What does it mean? It means that this special cloth is meant so that feathers don't come out, because without this feature, most often on feather sofa, you have the situation where feathers do create tiny holes in the cover, and in months and years of use, they come out. And so after a few years, you find your feather cushion to be kind of nearly empty, while this doesn't happen for this anti-feathers cloth. So this feature, 100% cotton, and then you have the cover of your choice. Let's talk about covers. So we have all the wealth of the available fabrics, faux leathers, velvets, and leathers of our collection. I must suggest that Aker, considering its feathers cushions, I don't find it really suitable for those microfibers which are quite rigid. We have very good microfibers, good for pet lovers, good for families with children, very good properties, technically speaking, but they are a bit rigid. And so in situations like these, you want to have a perception of the natural folds of the materials. Apart from these, any other material is great for Aker. And as I suggested, well, you know, I do love sofas with two colors. Well, it's not this approach. What is your take? You like it? You don't like two colors, two materials on the sofa? Write it in the comments. I do love this approach. It works on certain models. It doesn't work on other models. It does depend on the design of the model itself. I do love this approach. And, well, this is a great example, because here we have the Tivano leather, one of the available leathers in our collection. I must admit, this is not the most practical leather ever, but it has such an incredible touch and feel. And so depending on your lifestyle, how you envision using your sofa, but also depending on the part of the upholstered furniture you're going to apply this material, well, this is great. For example, here, I can imagine even having a glass of wine on the sofa, and, well, it's very unlikely that I might stain the structure. In a situation like this, even a soft, not the most practical leather like Tivano does have a great performance, and it has such a great look. Well, what I love about it, you see all these signs, certain dents. These are not defects of the leather. Technically speaking, in the business, they are called defects. We have a word in Italian called difettistica. It sounds like defects, but they are not defects. They are a feature of the leather. And, well, you know, if you love leather, this is what tickles your enthusiasm, at least my enthusiasm. And here we have fabric. I've seen, well, we've done Aker sofas completely in leather, and I find it astounding. That's a matter of taste, of course. Here we have Andros. It's a fabric, and I must say that we have done Aker sofas completely in leather, just like Aker sofas completely in fabric. It does work in both ways. Andros, it's not a microfiber. Most often, the very high resistance anti-stain fabrics covers are microfibers. This is a real fabric, and it has this very high resistance, which makes a great connection, a great combination with the Tivano leather, because you have the feel of the fabric, and also you have the practical aspects of, well, I might pour red wine or coffee, and well, I go to take a cloth, I dry it up, and I'm fine. And even in case it does get stained, because, you know, anti-stain properties does not mean that it's impossible to stain it. If it gets stained, you can wash it in the washing machine. Andros in particular, it has this two colors approach with these tiny rectangles in two colors. And, for example, I do like the match between this grayish beigey lighter color and the orangey terracotta color which matches the color of the leather here. But of course, your fantasy or your interior designer's fantasy is the limit in this case. One difference about fabrics and leathers, and this difference does apply to any model, not only Aker, is that stitches are managed in a different way, because, you know, if this had been in fabric, I would have had a single piece from ear to ear. Here I have a double stitch which connects these two pieces of leather. This is perfectly normal, and actually on high-level sofas like this, you don't have many stitches. You have big parts of leather which are being used, and so you might have a difference in the way not only the double stitches but also the single stitches are managed between the fabric and leather version. For example, you do see it also on the front here. On the fabric version, you would not have this stitch. This is not a defect of leather. I think it's a feature, but it's good to know when you, for example, you're looking at a picture of any model, not only this one, of a sofa in fabric and you are considering leather, or you are looking at a picture of the sofa in leather and you are considering fabric. This is good to know. We said at the beginning that the height of the feet is 18 centimeters. They are very nice design feet. Well, after a few years on the market, these sort of feet were not original anymore, but I always find them effective because this sort of feet, you don't perceive them at all unless you move a bit far away from the sofa. So in most homes, you would not really perceive them. But when you do look at them, when you're looking at the sofa from a perspective through which you can perceive them, well, they have an evergreen design. I do like the shape. And these are customizable in finishes because you have 11 standard finishes and then you have the Royal color scale to choose from. So for example, I could even have the approach, let's imagine an Aker sofa with a velvet in a peculiar color. And in a previous video, we were joking about an olive green table. Let's imagine an olive green Aker sofa with an olive green matching feet. And it would be astounding, but well, of course, you can substitute olive green with any color that you might conceive. And this allows to create these total look items, which are totally peculiar and totally unique for you. So we've come to the end of today's product review for the Aker Feathers Design Sofa, compact yet very comfortable. I hope that you like it and see you next time.